Byron Sharp came to this book with a simple and provocative argument. Marketing is not an art. It is a science. And like any science, it has observable, repeatable, and law-like patterns that hold across categories, across countries, and across time periods, and across brands of every size. That argument made many marketers uncomfortable, because the entire field of marketing has been built on something closer to intuition than evidence. The assumption was that great marketing required creativity, emotional resonance, and to make people feel something powerful enough to change their behavior. Sharp spent decades studying real purchase data and arrived at a fundamentally different conclusion. He writes, "Marketers like to say that there can be no laws concerned with marketing. Research has shown that is utter nonsense." And here we are, 12 chapters later. We have been through every major argument in this book. And I want to close this series by naming what Sharp actually has accomplished across all these 12 chapters. Putting it simply, what he did was de-emotionalize marketing. He did not say that emotions are irrelevant to customers. He said that emotional frameworks that marketers use to explain and predict consumer behavior are largely unsupported by the data. The loyalty is not what we think that it is. The passion for a brand is not what drives purchase decisions. And that entire emotional architecture of modern marketing is built on a foundation of assumptions that real purchase behavior consistently fails to confirm. Marketing is not about making people feel something powerful enough to change their behavior. It is about being present, about being available, and being easy to choose when the moment of purchase naturally arrives. And that is the conclusion of 12 chapters of empirical research. And it has 3 specific findings that underneath it that I want to name before we close out the series. The first of which is the double jeopardy law. And that's one of the most important frameworks that we use for the entire book. And it really does underpin some of the thinking of brand growth. Essentially, it means this: that small brands do not just have fewer buyers than large brands. They also have less loyal buyers. So they lose on 2 metrics simultaneously. The fewer people are in their pool, and the people who are in their pool are less committed. And that's double jeopardy. And that compounds because fewer buyers means less word of mouth, less social proof, and less passive brand presence in the market. All of which makes it more difficult to attract new buyers. And Sharp doesn't name what we added to that conversation in the series, so I have said that it's not double but triple jeopardy because of social proof. The path out of triple jeopardy is the same path out of double jeopardy, and that's penetration. That is, more people buying from you at least once, because size produces loyalty. Size produces social proof. Size produces the ambient credibility that makes the next buyer's decision easier than the last one. Finding 2, the Pareto split. Every marketer has heard about the Pareto principle. 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers. So you should focus on that 20% and find more people like them and own that segment. Sharp's data says that the real split across multiple industries is closer to 60-20. The top 20% of buyers account for roughly 60% of the revenue. And the bottom 80% account for the other 40% of the revenue. And that finding is not just a correction to a commonly cited statistic. It is the data that dismantles the entire loyalty argument. Because if the 80-20 rule were accurate, and your top 20% were really generating 80% of your revenue, then focusing on that heavy buyers would make strategic sense. Loyalty programs, deep community building, higher targeting, all of that would be justified in that paradigm. But if the real split is 60-20, then 80% of your buyers you've been told to deprioritize. And that chops your revenue nearly in half. And it prevents that 80% from joining your brand. So that 80% is where all of the growth revenue really is. Once you accept the real Pareto principle is 60-20 and not 80-20, every loyalty argument in marketing collapses. The math does not justify the strategy. Finally, finding 3, mental availability versus going viral. The third finding is the one I think honestly is more urgent right now, because there's an entire industry selling you the promise of going viral, of virality. There are coaches, there are courses, consultants, social media strategists. All of them are teaching business owners that if you can crack the code on going viral, your growth will naturally follow. That implicit argument that virality equals branding is a falsehood that's going to trap a lot of small businesses. That moment of massive attention does not necessarily translate into a lasting brand availability, mental availability. You have to consistently show up. Sharp's research says that virality is not how mental availability is built. Mental availability is built through consistent, broad reach over time. And that means showing up repeatedly in the market until your brand becomes part of the automatic consideration at the moment of purchase. The viral moment produces attention, but it does not produce mental availability unless the brand is so inseparably fused in the moment that you cannot remember one without remembering the other. And that fusion is extremely rare because it takes so long to build. The most viral content is remembered for its as humor or shocking or spectacle, but not for the brand that produced it. The people who are selling viral hook strategies, and they're making real money doing it, are selling you snake oil. And most gym owners buying those strategies are spending real time trying to crack this code of going viral. Even when it's cracked, it does not produce the mental availability that Sharp's data says that you need. Do not fall for the trap of going viral. If you can do it, great, but don't invest money behind going viral because it will not yield the brand growth that you expect it to yield. What grows a brand is not a moment. It's a posture. It is the decision to show up consistently, broadly, and memorably over enough period of time that when that buying moment occurs, and whatever brings it about, you will be the one that people think of because you built mental availability. And once you have that mental availability, we have to ensure that you have the physical availability that makes the sale very easy. Okay, Byron Sharp did not write a marketing strategy book. He wrote a marketing science book. And the difference between those two things matters enormously. A strategy book tells you what to do. A science book tells you what is true. Does this strategy reach more people or fewer people? Does it build mental availability or does it reward the buyers who are already committed? Does it produce penetration or does it produce loyalty metrics that feel good but do not move the needle on growth? Those questions, grounded in Sharp's research, are more valuable than any specific tactic in this book or this series could have recommended. Because tactics change, but the science does not. Personally, I've gotten a lot out of this book. 12 chapters, one conclusion. Marketing is a science. And the science says the same thing over and over again from 12 different directions. You must reach more people. You must build mental availability and make it easy to choose you. And never stop doing any of those things, because the moment that you stop doing those things, someone else is going to slip right in there and then they will become the most mentally available. And that's how brands grow. And thank you for being here for all of it. Subscribe if you have not already. Share this series with a gym owner who needs to hear it. And when you are ready to put the science to work for your gym, you can always find us at enochmarketing.com. Tomorrow, we're going to get into an article called Purpose Isn't Dead, but the Era of Easy Wins Certainly Is. It is an article about virtue signaling through advertisements. There's a stint there where every ad was also showing some sort of a message to appeal to its customer base and how that really wore people out. When we come back next week, we're going to get into a book called Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. With this series, with Sharp, we got into the science of marketing. This next one with Sutherland, we're going to get into the magic of marketing. So stay tuned. I am Colin Charles. This is Enoch Marketing, and we will see you in the next one.